Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to part two of our fond music memories or musical memories with special guests Craig and George Cyber from Music Musing Podcast. Hope you guys caught part one. We got about almost halfway through. We're going to kind of continue telling our stories. I guess I'll kick this part of it off,
You
right?
do.
Yeah, man.
So, like I said, I'm going to go in kind of like chronological order here. So the next kind of big thing that happened in my life that was kind of related to music, and I'm going to kind of I'm going to talk about one and then I'll mention another. I'm going to say this was probably about 1978 or 79, and this is before, obviously well before I was driving or anything like that. I was probably 12, 13 years old or whatever, and I had a bunch of friends who lived not in the same town as me, but on the other side of town. So they were like not very close. So like on the weekends or, after school, sometimes I take the bus over to their house, whatever. And my two buddies lived across the street from each other. Or sometimes on the weekends, mom or dad would drop me off and I'd spend the day over there. Anyway, we used to go get together over there and we'd have our bikes. And this one day in particular, it's crazy stories, things you do as a kid. One of my buddies is like, we found this house that either it's abandoned or the people only live there part of the time. They're never there.
This road doesn't sound good.
No, yeah, exactly. So, and they're like, and we looked in the windows and there's magazines all over the place. So I'm like, okay. And so my other friend said, yeah, they look like nudie magazines. And I was like, okay. And meanwhile,
are we past statute of limitations on this?
So we're like 13 years old or whatever. So we pick a day. I'm over there. I got my bike. They got their bikes. We go riding over there. And they apparently in between when they first told me, but they'd already gone into this house. So they knew exactly what was in it. So we go in there. We look through. We didn't spend much time there because we were really paranoid, but there was like no other houses around. It was out in the middle of nowhere. So we go and we grab a stack of these like Playboy magazines, right? We bring them back to where they live. We put them in some plastic bags and we put them in like a ditch, in like a little drainage pipe.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Obviously, probably not a good idea because if it rains, then what happens, right? Anyway, that's what we did. So we put them in there. We were all paranoid, whatever, but we got our Playboy magazines, right? And over the course of the next couple of weeks, we would go leaf through them, whatever. And they were all in terrible shape and whatnot. But so who knows who lives at this place or whatever. But I mean, so anyway, totally illegal, right? But 13-year-old kid, what do you know? But anyway, the best part of the story is that later on, after we had gotten back and we hid all the magazines, we went into my buddy's house. And I don't think his parents were home at the time. And he's like, oh, you got to check out this album that I just got. It's amazing. And it's by a band he goes, I never heard of before, but I don't even remember where he said he got it. So I was like, all right, cool. So he puts it on. And he hands me the LP, and it's Black Sabbath Paranoid. And I'd never heard of Black Sabbath before, or maybe heard of them in passing, but, like whatever. I was into Kiss at the time. I have a whole story about Kiss Alive being the first album I ever bought and all that kind of stuff. But this was like 2 years later. And so I was into Kiss, but I was into other like mellow stuff like ELO and the Eagles and Steve Miller Band and Paul McCartney Wings and Kansas and Meatloaf and stuff like that. But he puts it on and War Pigs comes on and I'm like, holy crap. I've never heard anything like this before. And we're looking at the album and, the album cover is terrible. It's got this soldier guy, which has nothing to do with anything, right? But I guess that's the War Pig guy, whatever. And then the inside, you open it up and it's this ominous, like black and white photo of the guys in the band standing on this hill. And it's so creepy looking. They got the long hair and the long jackets and the crosses hanging around their neck. And I'm like, this is someone who is into Kiss, right? And I'm like, this is the coolest shit ever. And we're listening to that whole album, and I'm like, oh, man, I absolutely love this. And I said to him, I want to trade for this album. Because back then you traded everything. You traded comics, baseball cards, albums, whatever. And he goes, and I don't even remember what I traded for it. But we did the trade. I traded him something for that. And I went home with this album and I could not get enough of it. And I listened to it day and night. I would get home from school. I would listen to it. I taped it to a cassette. I would listen to the cassette, like wherever I was, I had a little radio or boombox or whatever. And, then not long afterwards, I got my first guitar. Paranoid was the first song I ever learned how to play on guitar, start to finish. I was so excited. And that album, that band, forever changed my life as far as like the type of music that I gravitated towards. And I was never the same. And I went there, you know, to Deep Purple and to Led Zeppelin and the Scorpions and Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and eventually Metallica, Slayer, and the list goes on and on and on. But it was because of Black, you know, Kiss to a lesser extent, but it was Black Sabbath that completely changed my life for all sorts of different reasons. And they're still my top two favorite bands of all time. It's Sabbath and Deep Purple. And just for me, anytime I think of my history with Black Sabbath, I always remember that crazy day going and stealing old Playboy magazines from someone's house that I don't even know, right? Hiding them in the drainage ditch and then going and listen to this album that just absolutely blew my mind.
Pretty much a good day for a 13-year-old.
It was for a 13-year-old, man. You can't beat that, right?
Right? Sign me up for something like that. That's hard to beat. That's a high watermark. That's tough.
I'm telling you.
That's an iconic album and song too. I mean, you don't.
I never need to listen to Paranoid again, but you know what?
Yeah,
it's had such an important place in my life. You know, now I mean, there's still, you know, Iron Man 2, but I still love listening to War Pigs. Hand of Doom is great. You know, I mean, there's still Rat Salad and
I don't turn Paranoid off when it comes on. If it comes on, I don't turn.
Yeah, I have a hard time listening to it, but I don't know if I turn it off. But I'm just kind of like, oh God, I'd rather hear something else. But I still get a kick out of War Pigs. I mean, War Pigs, I think, is a genius song. You know, Iron Man is played out too, but man, there's some great stuff. Electric Funeral.
Oh,
you know, wow.
Yeah.
Come on, it's just
who covered that on the Nativity in Black?
Oh yeah, who was that? I don't remember.
It wasn't Blood Number 5. Who was the band did Blood Number 5? George, you should know this. Come on, man.
The only one I know is Sweet Leaf that Godsmack covered.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, back to reality. So honestly, and this is no joke, you can basically take the front part of your story off, put the front part of my story on it, change out the album for Appetite for Destruction, and it is the identical story. I am not
everybody's
kidding.
Got those stories. I would hope everybody's got these stories. Yeah.
Right. And we just talked about this a minute ago that maybe some people don't, but
yeah, exactly.
I have no idea how. But I had a good friend in high school, and his older brother was a drummer. And I was sitting in shop class across from his older brother. I remember him sitting backwards on a chair on the back of it. And I'm like, this guy's so cool. He's got long hair. He's a drummer. I was like 15, 16. And a friend walked in and handed him the tape and said, here, it's, you know, you can have it back. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, Guns N' Roses. You want to listen to it? Sure. I took the tape.
No.
Huh?
Should have said no.
Took the tape, went home, put it in the Walkman, put the headphones on.
We're going to get the hate now after saying that.
and I seriously can remember my bed was in the corner up against the wall. I can remember kneeling down in front of my bed, putting the headphones on, opening up the tape cover, and everybody knows the picture that's in the tape cover, Appetite for Destruction. And I hit play, and it was seriously, it's the same feeling that you had. I was changed. 2 years later, I was playing guitar because of that. I was listening to different music because of that. I mean, I had listened to kind of rock at that point. I was listening to Zeppelin and AC/DC and a little bit harder stuff, but this changed how I felt about music. It changed how I played music. It changed how I absorbed music. But it's the same kind of story. I didn't have near the day you had on yours, but
I would hope not.
but it was life-changing. And I probably sat there and listened to that album front and back twice just at that point in time, because, you know, I didn't have any more time than that, you know, coming home from school. But I kept it for a week. I listened to it over and over again, nonstop. Made a copy of it as well and gave it back to him. And he's like, what'd you think? I'm like, well, it's amazing. It's changed my life. Who are these guys? He's like, they're pretty good. I'm like, oh, yeah, you just changed my life. But even my tone of guitar, you know, I chose to play Les Pauls because of him. I chose my tone to be, you know, overdriven and play with a wah when I play lead because of him. And it's because of Slash. And it's so weird that you literally could take like the bands out and the album out and put different ones in, and it's almost the same story as yours and as George's.
Yeah, I think that's that's the cool part, that, you know, bands that touch certain bands that hit that line. I mean, Black Sabbath, Pantera, Guns N' Roses, that's a huge deal. And like we've talked about again, I don't know anybody that doesn't have something like that. I don't even know if people don't listen to music. I don't know how it's possible. But
well, that's my third, because
Cool.
I figured I'd tie it in since you guys were going down that direction.
Just a little side note about Guns N' Roses. So I actually used to own the original.
careful, you're going on the
LP.
record now.
I know I am. I know. I
Video
used to. I had the original
Red light.
album with the original album cover, and I got rid of it.
Oh,
That probably would have been worth a lot of money.
yes, it is worth a lot of money right now.
Oh well, epic
Yeah.
fail. But
Yep.
what are you gonna do?
Well,
George,
George, what do you got?
one of my I guess favorite memory, like, I wasn't gonna put a lot of concert memories in here, but I love the band Authority Zero, punk band. They've been around 25 years now, and never really sold a ton of albums, never were super popular or anything like that, but just always dug them. Met the lead, met the band, met the singer a couple of times, seen them in concert, and so on and so forth. Well, I was dating my wife, and it was like our third date, and I had tickets. I had already bought tickets months ago to see them at this. It's called the local. It's closed now. It's called the Local 662 in St. Pete on Central in St. Pete, and it was a rat hole. I mean, it was like the Pegasus Lounge, Craig. But it may have held 200 people max, and that was including the bar. And the stage was probably about the size of a king size bed. I mean, it was this tiny little dimly lit place, but it was, long story short, buddy of mine, one of my better friends, was going too, and we rode over together. Well, learned a lot about the band. This is more of a personal story than a music story, I guess, but the band, they had some equipment failure, and they went from, the lead singer borrowed the acoustic guitar off the opening band's lead singer and kept going while it was something with the drums. I don't know if it was a kick pedal or something broke, but it took about a song and a half, and he transitioned from electric. He didn't even stop in the middle of the song. He just kept singing a cappella, and they handed him the acoustic guitar, and he went into the song acoustically. And then as they worked, he was kind of looking behind him as he was going through the song, but never missed his place in the song. And then when they got it fixed, they went back and he kept the acoustic guitar and just kind of made a modified version of the song that they were in mid throes of. And it just impressed me more. I liked that band more of that. And that was kind of a unique experience that my wife's not overly music. I mean, she likes music, but not like us. I mean, she appreciates music, but not to the extent we do. She doesn't do a podcast or anything. But so we were talking about possible drunken stories. So she got drunk, and we had to literally. She was speaking in a British accent, and we got to. I had to actually stop on the side of the road on the way home so she could throw up. And she slept on our third date. She slept on the floor in my bathroom because she was so hung or drunk still or whatever.
I was going to say, when the British accents come into play, that's usually the end of the story doesn't end well. Because I've had friends who have done the British accent thing, and those were ugly evenings. So.
Yes, and it's still almost 7 years later. It's still an epic between my friend and I. Is a British accent going to come out tonight?
So she will never live that down.
So no, absolutely not. And I still associate that really awesome concert atmosphere, and it's all one big cool story. I mean, like, I was just thoroughly impressed because it was the second or third time I saw the band, and I was like, "Do you want to go?" And again, she's she leans toward country or whatever. I mean, older country and so on and so forth. And I'm like, it's a punk band now. I mean, this is not something you're used to listening to. And I mean, there might be, like a mosh pit. There might be, people jumping up and down and bouncing off each other and things of that nature. And oh yeah, 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 and she's like, why are they hitting each other? When we're there. And it turned, so she started drinking and it all coordinated into that,
George, I don't understand why fists are flying and people are crashing into each other.
Didn't they just have a spot of tea? It was, but it all, it was a great band. I love the band still to this day. And, obviously I love my wife, and it was a fun, it all tied to, it was a really cool concert. It was a really cool story with her and how it ended up. And it's still a big, I kept that's one of the only concert stubs I kept. It's still in my wallet from that concert.
That's great. That's a great story.
That's just stuff like that's how music affects it's literally played into every aspect of my life. So.
And to all our British viewers, and I know we have a lot of them, we Americans love British accents. We love doing them. We love hearing them. So this is not meant as a slight to any of you.
That was not derogatory.
We love the way you talk. We love the way you talk.
It's fantastic. We appreciate it more than I appreciate it more than I could say.
All right, my next story is going to be pretty short and sweet, but I'm going to fast forward to 1986. So and this is kind of like a sports story. So I was in college. All right. I was, 2 years in. So I was I guess a junior. Yeah. Junior, I guess. No, junior, maybe sophomore. And my beloved New York Mets are in the World Series against the Boston Red Sox. Right. So it's Game 7. And it's been I've watched every game, and I drank a lot of beer in college, and we drank a lot of beer to all these games. So, but it was a nail biter of a series that went back and forth, back and forth. So at the time I was living off campus in this apartment complex, student apartment housing. And my then girlfriend at the time and a bunch of our friends, we were having a party watching the game in another friend's apartment. And we were rip roaring drunk, having the Mets wind up winning the game. But the whole time we're sitting, we're drinking beer, eating food. We bought all this food, crappy food, like wings and all this pizza nonsense, and we're watching the game. It's a nail biter of the game. They win the game. We go berserk. And I've been a Met fan since I was a little kid. And my buddy, whose apartment it was, the song he played the second they won the game was Louie Louie.
Oh, weird.
By the Kingsmen. And could I have cared less about Louie Louie before that moment? No. But man, I will now forever associate Louie Louie with the Mets winning the championship, the World Series in 1986. And we all ran out into the streets, drunk as skunks, shouting, we
are British accent.
No, not a British accent. That would have been great though. Singing Louie Louie, and just people were lighting off fireworks, and I just remember this we just went nuts, and it was just so great. And that's kind of like a real fun up tempo party song, and it was just the perfect song to put on. And I don't know why he decided to put that on, because it's not like that's the music he really listened to and normally, but it worked perfectly. And so I always, when I think of, God, it's now 34 years. The Mets have not won another World Series in 34 years. Now I'm angry about it.
I'm an Indians fan. I don't want to hate.
Exactly, right? So it's so either Louie Louie could piss me off, or maybe, but no.
That's what I was saying earlier. Does the song sometimes piss you off?
It reminds me of just a wonderful evening, a great time. And for me, when it comes to sports, that's, if you're a sports fan, if you have a team that you really love, that's a great moment when you can experience joy like that your team won. And unfortunately that's the only time, because in 1969 I was 3. I didn't give a shit about the Mets when I was 3 years old. So in all my years of following this team, that's the only time they've won it all. So a very special moment for me, and that song is tied directly to the World Series win for the New York Mets.
I bet Billy Buckner hates that song.
I'm sure he does. All right, Craig, I turn it over to you.
Did you have to really go there? Seriously?
Sorry for all your Boston guys.
Yeah, you helped them win the World Series.
I'll make mine a quick one, because in today's day and age, when I practice I still play on a worship team at church. When I practice, they've got so much technology now that I can run the music into my amp and be playing at the same time and hear it all in my head. I can slow it down to half speed. I can change the tempo to whatever speed I want. I can change the key to whatever I want. So when I'm learning songs, there's so much out there for me to absorb and to take in and to learn from other people who've played it. There's YouTube videos out there for it. When I first started playing guitar, that was nothing out there like that. There was me with one headphone in and one headphone off and my amp, and playing a song over and over again until I got that song. And two songs stick out for that. And every time I hear, well, the one part in one and the whole song for the other, it's back to that. Wow, I can't believe I learned these songs this way. Are you cringing already?
Yes, 'cause I know which songs they are because I heard you play them over and over.
Do you really know which two songs they are?
Well, I know one is Deep Purple.
No, I didn't actually. I did. Okay, you probably did hear me learn that one, but that one doesn't stick in my head as much as the solo in "Talk Dirty to Me," which is the first solo I ever learned from Poison, and "Jump in the Fire" by Metallica, which I probably played
70 to 80,000 times.
Probably.
Greg, Fist Bump, that's one that I played a million times too. That was probably the second song that I learned. Well, maybe not the second, but I played that one till I got the entire thing down. I was like, and that's not an easy song to play.
No,
actually.
it's not. And like I said, nowadays you have that ability to, you got 6 YouTube videos out there where guys showing you where to put your fingers and how to play it. You didn't have that back then. I had to listen, and I had to rewind the tape, and I had to listen, and I had to
bought
rewind
the sheet music if you could find it, or you just played it over and over and over again.
So Guitar for the Practicing Musician, I bet you read that like your entire early guitar
player, Guitar World, Guitar for the Practicing Musician.
And you waited for those magazines to come out because the tab was like, this is the one I want to play.
Yep.
I don't care about the other 5 songs that are in there, but this is the one I want to play. But those 2 songs, learning the solo in Talk Dirty to Me it wasn't a very hard solo, but learning that and getting it down was something that now every time I hear that solo, it comes on. I'm thinking of, wow, where I've come in playing guitar since then. And Jump in the Fire was just one of those repetition things that I don't know how I didn't get sick of that song, or George didn't kill me for playing that song over and over again at that point.
Well, I thoroughly remember, when you were when you first started plunking strings was Smoke on the Water, like
and I think everybody does, but I think these 2 songs stand out because I think at the point that I was learning these songs, I was serious. Like I was ready to actually play guitar. When I started, I was just kind of fumbling around, and Anson and he was trying to teach me some stuff. But at that point, I was about 2 years in, and I was ready to actually start, playing songs to the note and start writing songs for myself and stuff. So I think that's why those 2 stand out. Yeah, but I think everybody learned "Smoke on the Water" as their first rock songs. But that was mine.
Simplicity is the or mother of invention, or something. Or, one of my best memories in my life was at a time in my life when I was probably divorced a couple years, and I'd gotten out of music. I didn't let music. Music has always brought me to places, i.e. Pantera, so on and so forth. I love and enjoy how music is an escape. Music has always been an escape for me. Depending on, what I'm listening to, it takes me to wherever I need to be. If I'm pissed off at something, you can listen to Pantera, and it kind of works that out. If I'm happy-go-lucky, and you whatever the mood. Music has a different mood to it. Different music has different moods to it. Well, so I'd been divorced, and I was dating a girl, and like, you know what? She turned me on to the Black Keys. Craig, is not really a huge fan. I just thought it was. It's 2 guys, a guitar player and a drummer, and it was different. I always liked Stevie Ray Vaughan. I like the blues. I like the bluesy rock, and it was at a time in my life where they just hit, again, kind of like Pantera, where it was just hit where I needed it to hit at the time. It was kind of melancholy, but the lyrics were great. The sound was great. It was raw. The first couple albums were like unproduced. They produced them in their basement or whatever, literally. So it was, I mean, I love that raw feel. And the girl I was seeing at the time surprised me with tickets to go see them. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, you know, but it was at the Midtown Music Festival in Atlanta. And, you know, to take a road trip and to see a band on a stage with, I mean, there was literally 100,000 people. I mean, it was a festival setting. I had never, you know, livestock. Craig and I went to that. It was, you know, the local radio station's attempt at, you know, like you said, there was, at one point, Leonard's 4 or 5 years in, Leonard Skinner played. But I mean, this was different. This was, I mean, Radiohead. This was the Black Keys. Eminem. There were 2 huge stages, and one would play and they would finish, and you would like migrate over in front of this other huge stage, and the next band would come right on. And there was like 22 bands over 2 days. But we went with the specific intent to see the Black. So it was a band that I recently turned on to that I really liked and was really into, and got to go see them in a venue that was for the first time in a really unique venue. And because I'd never been, I was anti-festival concerts. I was like, the sound is crap. You know, there's you know, fights and
too many people.
Yeah, it wasn't my vibe. This was, and maybe that's the only one I've been to. So I guess maybe I can speak to that it was a totally different vibe. I mean, they played like for an hour solid of just, they sounded amazing. Everything was great. And it just turned into like this huge weekend of really reabsorbing music, falling back in love with music and the way it made me feel, and having, you know, after going through an ugly time in my life, for music to pick me back up was, I always knew it would. I always knew it was there. I always had it, always needed it, always used it. But I'd kind of gotten away from it. Just didn't want anything to, you know, just didn't want to hear anything new, and, you know, whatever. I'd be pissed off. So I listened to Pantera type of thing. And it really changed my outlook on music. And then I started craving it again, like almost ravenous. Like I had to find new music. I had to find something else I liked, something new, something better, something more.
So it's almost like it's not just it made you think differently about music, but I think the music brought you back to life.
Absolutely. 100%. And that's, music has always been my saving grace, sort of. Like if everything else fails, I know one singular song I can play 100% of the time, and it's going to be good. But I mean, I
know that one.
More Than a Feeling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it.
Just hear your boat turn. But I have a lot of them.
Ding ding.
There's a lot of songs that I can play that can turn days around, that can turn weeks around for me, that can turn, you know, a lot of negativity, or even a lot of positive, depending on what's going on. It can really change the way I'm thinking or feeling. And it's always has that it's always had that ability to make it better, because my favorite line is
More Than a Feeling.
My life.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. My life, I don't always understand the plot, but the soundtrack is awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
You know,
that's the most important part, is the soundtrack, right? Who cares what the rest of the thing? Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, I've learned to kind of live with that. That, you know, music has taught me a lot. It's shown me a lot. It's helped me a lot, and it's always, I mean, you know, for lack of a better way of putting it, it's always been there. It's the only thing that doesn't leave. That you can always go back to whatever the Paranoid album, that LP can always take you back to where that one great day, even if it's just that. Or it can take you to, you know, one great weekend, or one great lifestyle, or one great love, or one great whatever it is, and you can really make it. It really does turn into what it needs to be. So, and music will always do that for me, and I would think it does that for you guys as well. So,
yep.
So
Gee, we are hitting that mark yet again on these.
Yeah, I may defer because you got, everybody's kind of heard our stories. I mean, I'll just really tag quickly on livestock. You know, we went to festival concerts for a couple years in a row, and they were really good. People like Anthrax played there. One memory I had of that was I literally walked around the corner, and these guys were just releasing their smoke from their stuff that they were smoking, and I walked directly into it, and that was the contact buzz I got before going to watch Leonard Skinner. So Leonard Skinner might not have been as good as I said on the 50 episode, because I might have been
got some bad.
You might have thought they'd be better, you know. Who knows? That's
true.
geez.
But I'm going to defer. I want to hear more Pete Pardo. Give me one more story.
All right. Well, I tell you what, I got a real quick one, and then I'll tell it because I promised George I would touch on this. So my last one I was going to talk about, and I know some people are going to be like, you got to be kidding me, is Don't Stop Believing by Journey, because that was the anthem of my wedding.
I'm gone.
Oh, what?
Right. Sorry. All right. So that song will always have a special place in my heart, because that was it. We played it during the wedding, and that was the last song we played at the after party. And everybody who stuck around, we were all in the middle of the dance floor, singing and throwing our fists in the air, hugging each other. And it was a great end to it. An amazing evening and one of the best days of my life. Anyway, I wanted to throw that one out there. But the meat of the one I really wanted to tell today. So I'm going to go to 1987. So in 1987. A self-titled album by Whitesnake came out. Okay. I was going to college at the time, and George and I were like, yeah, we were getting pumped for this earlier today. So and it came out the day that there was a snowstorm happening in New York where I live. And I drove like 40 minutes in the snow. I cut out of a class to go drive to my buddy Steve Keeler's store, Rock Fantasy, in Middletown, New York, to buy the LP of Whitesnake, self-titled 1987, whatever you want to call it. Brought it back because I was a big fan. Was blown away by the album, but one song in particular just absolutely captivated me. That was Still the Night, right? And I would listen to this song over and over and over again. The whole album is great, but man, long story short, that has become like my favorite song of all time. But there's more to this story. So fast forward a couple months. So I'm still listening to this album like you would not believe. I was a communications major in college, and I had a class called TV production, or TV, radio and TV production, whatever it was called. So basically, one of our assignments, because I wanted to work in TV, so one of our assignments was to form teams and put together a music video. And nobody could, and so with the team that I had, right, nobody could figure out what they wanted to do, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm totally into this album and totally into this song. And, Still the Night, Wolf Eye Honey, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, and I'm into monsters and creatures and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, so I said to the team, I said, why don't we do Still the Night by Whitesnake? Because it was a hot song at the time. And let's do a werewolf story. And they all agreed. So it was basically my idea. So what we did was we found our cast. We concocted this whole story about this guy who becomes a werewolf, and he's got a fiance, and they're slated to get married. But right before they get married, he starts changing and going through all this stuff. And then in the midst of like one of his changes, he becomes a werewolf, and he actually goes and he seeks her out and he kills her.
Oh,
right. Yeah, exactly. And then the townspeople find out about it, right? So they go and we have this big chase scene where the townspeople with pitchforks and shovels and axes are chasing him through a field, and all this crazy, crazy stuff. So we go through all this stuff. We have flashback scenes and all this really wild stuff. And then at the end, right at the end of the song, with that dramatic, finish, the guitar solo going through the end, he's in bed. And he's like he's having a dream, right? And all this kind of stuff. And he's like going back and forth, back and forth. He finally wakes up and he looks, and next to him in bed is his dead fiance with, of course, the fake blood all over her neck and everything like that. He looks out the window. The moon is full. He looks at her. He's in total shock. I thought it was a dream, that whole type of thing. And it turned out great. And I remember the day we actually showed it in class to the entire class. And people were kind of like, they didn't know what to say. They were either like, that is the weirdest shit I've ever seen, or that is really cool, right?
God, please tell me this video is out there. This video has got to be out there, right?
It's on my Facebook page. If you go to my videos, it's on
okay.
There.
Yeah. Yep.
Go into my photos and go into my videos. You'll find it in there. And it was a blast. And I have it. I had it on VHS. It's horrible. It's horrible quality, but I transferred
it. Makes it even better.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess. But
Yeah,
it's
no,
and
no.
I make a little cameo in it too, which was kind of fun. But it was so much fun, and we didn't go all out with the makeup. Like we got him, and it's funny. The guy who played the lead in this was a friend of mine who's in the fraternity that I knew pretty well. At the beginning of the shoot, because it took forever to do this thing, he had long curly hair, so it almost looked like a mane. He put on the fangs. We gave a little black, eyeliner, or whatever, and we shot it like late in the afternoon, early evening. He looked the part, but then he cut his hair before we finished shooting a thing. So he had all of a sudden at the end of the video, he's got like really short hair. We're like, oh, dude,
What?
like, why did you do this?
Wow.
But it turned out okay. And then, in fact, at the end, because he cut his hair so short, we actually had to go out and buy like a rubber werewolf mask to put on him. So at the very end of the battle scene with the townspeople, he comes out of hiding and attacks them, and he's got the werewolf mask on. But it's really dark and it's kind of fuzzy, but it was so much fun. And so from now, always when I think of Still the Night, I remember that video. They almost go hand in hand. So like when I'm listening to Still the Night, I'm picturing that music video.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
Well, I have to see it now so I can do the same thing then, because that's phenomenal. What he's not telling you is I sent a video. It was on the radio on my way home from work today, and we send videos back and forth of songs that are on the radio, and that was on today. So,
and George is right. That solo section, is just amazing. It hits that crescendo, and I get it too. He in his video, he's look at the goosebumps. Now I get the same thing every time I hear it.
Like Sykes' tone in that whole album is amazing too.
It's incredible, and him and Coverdale together.
That riff all the way. I mean, that riff all the way through that song is probably one of the catchiest heavy metal riffs ever. I would say ever.
Yeah,
it just it pulls you in and doesn't let go, and
it's a juggernaut for sure. It is.
I did want to real quick read the.
I mean, 2 minutes.
I know we always joke about More Than a Feeling. It's because of the lyrics. I didn't want to. I mean, we always joke about it, but because of the lyrics, the initial lyrics, the first verse of the song is, I looked out this morning and the sun was gone. I turned on some music to start my day, lost myself in a familiar song. I closed my eyes and I slipped away. That's
what it's all about, right?
That encompasses my beliefs in music, is why that song is so poignant to me. And, I know we joke a lot about it, and it's no secret with anybody that knows me. That's why. It's because of the lyrics of that song. I literally live those lyrics. I try most days, other than the sun not being up, but I mean, most days live those lyrics. You can lose yourself in a familiar song, close your eyes and slip away, and that's what it's about with me. And that's what that song is about, and that's what these podcasts, these YouTube, everything is what it's about. So,
and that is a perfect outro here. So Craig and George, thanks once again. This was a blast doing this. Guys, make sure everybody go check out their podcast, Music Podcast, on the web. All right, you'll love it. Listen to their 50th episode. It's a lot of fun, and we will have them back on before you know it. This is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Guys, say goodbye. Thanks again. We'll see you real soon.
Thanks, Pete. Had a blast. Thanks, buddy.
Yep. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.